Hey guys, and welcome to another quarterly review. In this one, we're talking about a show that was highly anticipated until its release, Komi Can't Communicate. Seeing the previews in addition to the unique art style that the main cast sports, I knew this was one that I wanted to watch. However, with the plethora of slice-of-life rom-coms that revolve around a beautiful girl that has trouble talking to people, would this be a show that can not only stand out, but also be captivating? Well, that's what I am here to find out and let you all know. So without further ado, let's get into the quarterly review for Komi Can't Communicate. So first, I think I'll get my opinions on the visual aesthetics of the show out of the way. To put it simply, the show is absolutely gorgeous looking. Of course, the first episode looks a decent amount better than the 2 episodes that follow it. But even then, it still looks fantastic. The studio behind these stunning visuals is none other than OLM. You may know them from the works such as Inazuma 11, Card Fight Vanguard, and there's one more that I can't quite remember. Oh, duh, Pokemon. How could I possibly forget that one? Now, there are several different teams within OLM, and Team Kojima is one of the newest ones. So I'm sure the pressure might have been on when it came to producing such a highly anticipated series. But I'll say, so far, they're completely nailing it. That first episode especially just looked like it was straight out of a movie production. The colors popped, the lighting was remarkable, and most importantly, the character animation was lively and fun. It's really all you could hope for when it comes to visuals for a show like this. The soundtrack, when played, was also pretty great. Sometimes there were bouts of silence, but I don't think you always need something playing. It can really create a good atmosphere at times. But when it was time to play some music, it didn't disappoint. Now, I'm not going to say the music was breathtaking by any means, but it was good and serviceable. With that said, let's actually get into the synopsis of this series and its first 3 episodes. We open up in classic anime fashion. Cherry blossom petals blowing in the wind, serene music, and oh yeah, it's spring and the beginning of a new school year. There's a little girl singing the goal of the whole series while on her way to school before we get to the titular character, Komi. She's a girl whose beauty stuns anyone that lays eyes on her. The setting is Eton Private High School, a well-known prep school filled with very unique individuals. We're then introduced to one of our protagonists, Hitohito Tadano. Tadano is a very ordinary dude that really doesn't want to stick out, so his intention is to read the room and act accordingly. You know, one day I'd like to see a series actually have the main character be successful in their attempts to have a normal, quiet life and somehow be interesting. Because, you know, they never get what they want if what they want is a normal life. So anyhow, our 2 protagonists meet. It's an awkward interaction, and he thinks he can salvage his normalcy, but unfortunately ends up seat neighbors with Komi, much to the chagrin of his peers, painting a target on his back. As the first episode progresses, we get our first look at the zany characters we can expect to see throughout the series, until we finally hit the event horizon of the series. Tadano wakes up to Komi talking to a stuffed kitten, pondering why she is unable to speak in front of everyone. She ends this conversation with a meow right as Tadano awakens, leading to a very mortifying situation for the both of them. As Komi attempts to escape, Tadano expresses what no one has ever been able to notice before. Komi has problems with communicating. As they try to figure out ways to communicate with one another, they turn to writing on the chalkboard. During their exchanges, we learn a lot about Komi as a character. She desperately does want to speak to people, but is always unable to let the words come out. Misunderstandings ensue as she believes her peers hate her because of their cartoonish fainting and groveling over her, which is quite the opposite of their intentions. As she expresses the things she wants to be able to talk about, even saying that she can't talk about the weather without getting nervous. She apologizes to Tadano for bothering him, and once more attempts to leave. But before she can walk out of the classroom, Tadano begins writing on the chalkboard himself, asking Komi her opinions on the weather. Stuff like this is just so wholesome and heartwarming, and I am 100% here for it. A huge montage commences as they talk at lengths with each other through writing. In a way, this kind of gives me a Silent Voice vibes. It's not exact, but I hope those of you that have seen that movie get what I'm talking about. As their conversation comes to an end, Tadano learns that Komi would like to make 100 friends. Wanting to help Komi with this goal, Tadano offers to become her first friend and help her seek out the remaining 99. As the episode draws to a close, the narrator of the series comes in and explains the difficulties of social anxieties, stating that just because someone has problems with forming connections doesn't necessarily mean they don't want to. Then, in proper fashion, we end the first episode with the opening, and man does it slap. This season has just been full of good music, and I really hope that trend continues. Also, it looks unbelievable. Just one episode in, and I'm already solid. However, things can change within a few episodes, so that's why we're still going to watch 2 more before drawing any conclusions. Also, while it doesn't make an appearance until the second episode, the ending is pretty good too. Doesn't stand out as much as the opening does, but is still an enjoyable song to listen to nonetheless. Post-OP, we get just a little bit more from this episode. Komi is making her strides in being able to communicate with Tadano a bit better, and he makes his strides in helping her push even further beyond that. However, things will not be so easy, as this school is filled with, as the narrator puts it, freaks, weirdos, loners, miscreants, and eccentrics. Basically the people that would be the most difficult for Komi to communicate with. So yeah, that's the idea behind this series, and while not overly original in premise, is promising based purely on the characters alone and how the animators have managed to bring them to life thus far. So, to give a more brief summary of the next 2 episodes, they basically follow the typical formula of these goal-oriented types of shows. They start with a few characters that will basically be the main cast, and yeah, they're pretty wacky alright. There's Yamai, who's basically just your typical sweet on the outside, bitchy behind closed doors character. When Tadano approaches her to see if she'd like to be Komi's friend, she doesn't even hear him out before she starts calling him scum that doesn't deserve to sit next to her, let alone speak her name. So that was a fail right off the bat. Next, he tries asking the childhood friend, Osana. However, this isn't your typical childhood friend. This is the ultimate childhood friend. Yeah, this very meta character is not only a childhood friend of Tadano, but of literally everyone in their school. I think it's a really fun way to do a character like this, and I'm glad there was some real thought put behind how it should be done. This character is a bit ambiguous when it comes to their gender, and is just overall pretty eccentric, and while can feel a little too wacky at times, has generally been kind of interesting to deal with. So this social butterfly should be a shoo-in to Komi's next friend, right? Well, no. Apparently in their youth, Osana attempted to become Komi's friend, but since Komi had a lot of social anxiety, even then was unable to talk to them. This affected Osana so much that they became sick from the shock of all of it. That said, they eventually come to an understanding and becomes Komi's second friend. Now, Osana is a little bit of a rascal, and might push Komi a little too far at times for their own amusement, but I think the character is generally well-intentioned and means no harm. In the third episode, we get introduced to our next friend, Agari. She's a bit more like Komi in the sense that she has her own problems speaking to people, but definitely not the same extreme. So what's her character shtick? Well, she's just a gross pervert that wants to be treated like a dog rather than a friend. I mean, maybe Agare will evolve over time, but currently she doesn't seem too enjoyable. And I definitely like to see her in as small doses as I possibly can. Moving past that, we get some group interactions with other characters that I'm sure will eventually get their own portion of future episodes. But so far, they just seem okay. The ninja dude might be interesting to see a bit more of, but there's nothing really to go on for the rest of them at the moment. So yeah, so far the only really interesting characters are Komi, Tadano, and Osana, and I think that's just fine. The main cast doesn't need to be too bloated, because then you end up needing to cram them all in, limiting the screen time and character development of the characters we should care the most about. I think that was a problem that Orimiya experienced in the end, if I'm being honest. Sure, the other characters were good, but even just being inoffensive at worst. But I really cared more about Ori and Miyamura, so when they got less screen time, it really left me wanting more. Of course, that could still happen in Komi Can't Communicate, but at the moment, I don't necessarily get those vibes, and I'm really hoping I'm right. I think a strong focus on Tadano and Komi will serve this series well, as the interaction between these two is just too precious. Of course, it feels like it could move towards their relationship being more than just platonic, but honestly, I'd be perfectly happy if it remained strictly so. This story could go either direction, and I feel I'd totally be fine with it. The little scenes of seeing these two deepening their own friendship is just fantastic, and it doesn't really need to have a romantic companion on top of it. At least, not just yet anyways. I'm sure that will eventually happen, but for the time being, I'm glad it's not being explored too much. Seeing the scenes of Komi really wanting Tadano's number, leading to her practicing phone calls later on, and actually calling Tadano by mistake and trying to play it off by pretending to be an automated system, was just genuinely funny and adorable. In fact, her general reactions are funny and adorable. The way her eyes bug out when she wants to say something, or is just nervous, is too cute, whereas in other moments, her intense staring and shaking make her come off as scary to others, and creates really funny moments of misunderstandings. I want to see more things like that. If this series can provide a nice balance of Komi steadily reaching her 100 friend goal in a comedic way while deepening her friendship with Tadano, then I think it's setting itself up to be one of the best slice of life shows I've seen in some time now. Which leads to my conclusion, my quarterly review. Is Komi Can't Communicate a show worth continuing past episode 3? I'd say absolutely yes. I'd argue there's something in here for everyone and is just a good time to be had. The preemptive warning that I would give on who I think wouldn't enjoy this show would have to be if you're a monster. And if you are, then this is definitely not for you. Jokes aside, I can see how some people would be bored of this, but I think most of the people that fall into that category probably already know that this kind of show isn't their cup of tea, and wouldn't even need to ponder if they should spend any time on it. But if you're a fan of great art, fun personalities accompanied by fantastic character animation, and just overall wholesomeness, then this is a show you will thoroughly enjoy. Those are my opinions. But what are yours? If you've watched the first 3 episodes of Komi Can't Communicate and have your own opinion on it, whether you agree with my take or not, please let me know in the comments below. Want to watch Komi Can't Communicate? Well, it will be airing on Netflix on Thursday, albeit about 2 weeks behind, and through other means. With that said, I'm Mystic Sage, and I'll see you all next time for some more awesome anime content. Hey guys, before the video closes out, I just want to thank you so much for bringing your support over here on Mystic Sage. I upload every Saturday and Sunday and strive to bring you guys a review and some fun discussion content, so your viewership means the world. Also, if you want a little more from Mystic Sage, head on over to TikTok and check us out over there for more fun, bite-sized anime videos. I've also got an Amazon store where I sell tons of cool anime merch, so check it out. For real this time though, thanks again for watching. I'm Mystic Sage, and I'll see you next time with some more great anime content.